This is Inside Mside, your favorite podcast for all things Morningside. Here's stories from students, alumni, faculty, and more about what makes the Morningside experience so special. Welcome to another episode of Inside Mside, Morningside's podcast where you can hear it from everything from current students, former students, alumni, faculty, staff, everything that's happening here on campus and abroad. And we want to bring it to the audience everywhere so that they're in the know of all things happening at Morningside. And today is no exception. We have a few guests here with us that I'm excited to have on the pod. Welcome to we were talking earlier, first podcast, right?
Yeah, first time.
Excellent. Well, hey, we're excited to have you here on Inside Mside. What I would love to do, I'll first introduce myself. My name is Alex Waters. I'm the Alumni Engagement Director here at Morningside that gets the honor to really sit here and have these conversations. And we have a few guests, and I'm going to go through and have you all introduce yourself. Just talk a little bit about what you do here on campus, what your title and role is. And then Mallory, as an alum, I want you just to maybe introduce yourself. What year did you graduate? What did you study? And that type of stuff. So, Aaron, do you want to start?
I'm Aaron Bunker, a biology faculty in my 13th year, and I teach a lot of physiology to the biology students.
Okay.
And it's his birthday.
Yes. You probably can't see this if you're listening in, but yes, Aaron is rocking this guy is 40 with two thumbs up pointing at it. So yes, happy birthday for sure.
Gotta embrace it. That's right.
That's awesome. Welcome.
My name is Brian McFarland. I am the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs here at Morningside and also Professor of Chemistry. I've been here for 10 years and I'm teaching primarily organic chemistry.
And how long have you been here, Brian?
I've been here about 10 years or so,
Okay.
Overall, give or take a few months.
I got you.
Okay.
Mallory.
I'm just thinking when you said 10 years, I'm like, oh, does that mean I've been here? Was it 10 years?
Right.
Almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my name is Mallory Sea. I graduated in 2016 from Morningside, and I did a double major in biology and chemistry. And I just finished my PhD in marine science at the University of Auckland in New Zealand.
Most definitely. Well, we are excited to welcome the three of you. Mallory, I can't wait to talk a little bit more in depth about what you're doing and what got you there and things like that, but also for the members of the faculty and staff that are here with us too, to talk a little bit about that process, what it was like. I mean, maybe some stories of her as a student, I'm thinking. But
oh, yeah.
Going through some of
today.
those things, I think that would be a lot of fun. But first, one of the things I like doing on the pod is really getting into a little bit about what brought students here. And so, Mallory, I mean, now that you've had some time to reflect, you've went through your program here at Morningside, but then also finishing up your PhD or finished your PhD. As you reflect back, think way back, what brought you to Morningside as a student?
Yeah, okay,
initially?
So that's senior year of high school. So
Yeah.
I'm a Sioux City local, right? And I wanted to get out. You know, I'm not going to lie. I was like, let's get out of Sioux City. Let's try something new. But
because
it pulled
we don't
me
have
in.
any oceans
Yeah,
anywhere
exactly.
near.
Well,
Yes.
at the time, marine science, not on the radar. You know, at the time,
Fair
I was
enough.
just like, where's the undergrad experience going to be? And I was kind of still looking in the Midwest, but I don't know. I was thinking about family as well. Like, I have grandparents out in Oregon. So I was looking as far as Oregon as well, really thinking it wasn't going to be Sioux City. But I've been playing soccer my whole life as well, and that's something I really wanted to do. And I already had some connections kind of out here in Morningside with Tom Maxon. And so he'd watch me play it a bit. I'd come out and play with the girls a bit. And that was something I wanted to continue. That's kind of the only known besides biology and chemistry. I've always liked science. So I wanted somewhere where I could do the science, somewhere where I could keep playing soccer.
Yeah.
And I remember actually a conversation with Tom Maxon. And I don't know if this is like the moment, but he said, you know, someone like you're going to continue with school. You can have the small school experience now. You'll get the big school experience later. And that was the first time I thought about that. And I was like, oh, okay, that's true. Yeah, and Morningside, I mean, it was a financial decision as well, right?
Yeah.
So it was good people. And then if I was going to fund it myself, Morningside made it so feasible for me to do it. It was just such a good kind of all-around package deal. I was like, oh, I really can't say no. And I knew in the back of my head, I was going to get out later, right? And I
Yeah.
had those opportunities, obviously, as we're going to discuss.
Find your
but-
way.
Yeah.
And so what were you thinking about studying early on? Just you thought the sciences, that's where your passion really lied.
Yeah.
You just weren't sure where it would take you maybe?
I think they can probably comment on this too, but yeah, I started off knowing it was going to be something with biology or chemistry. I always liked science.
Yeah.
Exploring the how and the why and those kinds of things. But I think at first I was thinking I was going to be pre-dental or something. And then at one point my major, it was like a unified science teaching major. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I think I chose the unified science teaching because I was like, oh, I could go to grad school, but I could also teach biology, chemistry, physics. I was trying to keep every door open.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a struggle for me to decide. But I knew that was my department.
Yeah, talk
Yeah.
about a great student athlete experience, right?
Yeah.
You still wanted the opportunity to be able to play something that you're really passionate about, but then also have the great student experience where you are going to be able to be intentional about exploring your options, but then really just kind of see and navigate where that would take you. What did the two of you remember? Did either of you have her early on then in her college career as far as first year, any first classes, or what were your first impressions?
You were my academic advisor, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there we
Bunker,
go.
yeah.
Well, you were mentioning the trying to figure out
Yeah.
life, and so I distinctly remember 2 8.5 by 11 sheets of white paper, one for unified science with all the notes and conversation and classes, and the other one was probably for dental.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
This is one of those students where you can do whatever you want, but at some point you might want to focus in on something.
Yeah.
But they were good conversations, right? You're trying to
Yeah.
reflect with the student on what their options are and help them get there. So.
Yeah, I had actually Mallory greeted me my very first year at Morningside in organic chemistry. Now that's usually a class taken by sophomores and juniors, and I think you were a sophomore probably
Yeah, sophomore.
when you took it. And so yeah, it was apparent from the very first day that Mallory was going to have a pretty bright future, I think. And after you'd been in there, I don't remember if it was the first or second semester, but you came up to me and told me that you wanted to do some chemistry research. And I was like, great. Yeah, I'm always looking for researchers. And also, by that time, I think I'd seen enough of Mallory's work to know that she was going to do a really good job.
High level.
So we did research together for basically the rest of her time at Morningside. And I think I had you in one more. I had you in forensic chemistry, right?
Yep,
Later
yep,
on
forensic.
as a senior, maybe?
Yep.
Yep.
That was a good course. I
Yep.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was fun.
Wow. So yeah, kind of navigating, just understanding a little bit more about what you might want to go into and what those that first semester can sometimes be like for students. Because Aaron, to your point, I mean, I was thinking back even at my time at Morningside and not knowing what I wanted to do. I was very much so like Mallory in that you want to keep all of your options open. You want to study everything. Sometimes you have so many passions that you're like, I have no idea what direction I want to go, but I want to do all the things. And that's one thing that I really appreciate. And Brian, you would know about this too, but just thinking from a curriculum standpoint, having that flexibility, I think, is so critical. Being able to have those different classes that can lead you down different paths. You know what I mean? Whether you wanted to go the all science teaching or whether you wanted to go the pre-dental or anything like that, I think sometimes that can be really important when students are making those decisions, because sometimes it can take a semester or one meeting with an advisor or 5 meetings with an advisor. It can take a little bit of time, and it's important to be able to have that flexibility of the curriculum, I think. But one thing you mentioned too was that I loved was that early on research. So talk to me a little bit about that. What was some of the research and opportunities you were able to take advantage of, Mallory?
Well, I think you should take that one.
Yeah.
I didn't know what my options were.
Well,
so.
yeah,
That's true too.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you had anything in mind in particular.
No.
Whenever you talked to me, I think you probably had an idea that it would be based in organic chemistry somehow.
Did know that.
Since I taught the
Yeah.
course. But no, my specific area of research is in polymers, so materials, plastics, that type of thing. And so when Mallory came along, I was actually looking to diversify my research interests a little bit. So there was a new area to me. Obviously, other people had done some research called Ionic Liquids. And so basically, it was a way of making new types of materials and stuff that could be less, give fewer toxic odors, fumes, aromas, that type of thing. A little bit more environmentally friendly. And so I was kind of interested in starting something like that, and that's about the time Mallory came along. So she, not only did she come and do research, but she actually started a research project from scratch. This is not one, and Aaron, you know how it is. We have projects that go on for years and years, and we kind of build on it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Mallory started off from ground zero.
I remember we were like ordering the chemicals.
Yeah,
It's hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's a project that would have, I think, it took a special type of student to get as far as she did, building from the ground up, because everything we did was completely unknown. And I think Mallory, your general attitude about science and the world in general really helped out there, because I think you have a genuine intellectual curiosity to try to find out more about why stuff happens, what stuff happens and why stuff happens. So yeah, she was a natural at it, and so yeah, we worked on that for a good 2.5, 3 years or so, and looking at by the end of it, Mallory had synthesized all these new building blocks for polymers and new polymers themselves, seeing how they behaved, seeing how toxic they were, presented at national conferences, and she was the impetus for submission of a peer-reviewed manuscript.
That's right.
This is kind of one of those things that was in the plans the whole time, but again, Aaron, sometimes the procrastination with writing can be really real when it comes. Yeah, and so
I'm that way now too.
Mallory come to me
I'm done.
and say, Brian, I want to get this published.
Yeah.
I want a paper. I
Yeah.
want a paper. So, I'm glad you did that, because we ended up putting together a really good article, I think. And so and that work has been the basis for other students' work since she left. So.
Wow. What was that like? Kind of building that project from the ground up.
Well, for me, I'd never done research before, so I didn't know the right steps. I didn't know the right things to do, and I thought you were an awesome guide, and even when it came to writing the paper as well, it's like that's something I had never done. But then when I went to grad school and I already had kind of gone through that process and I knew what it looked like, I was a step ahead of everyone else, and I think that gave me more opportunities. And like some of the research that I was able to do, like the Amgen program in Japan, because I had already done the research, that opened new doors, and then those doors opened new doors. And yeah, it was just awesome.
And Aaron, talk to me about that relationship, because I think it's somewhat special at Morningside, the whole advisor-advisee relationship of not only showing the possibilities, but then kind of harnessing some of that energy or directing and working with students. Can you speak a little bit about what that's like being an advisor and kind of assisting students with this, and maybe recognizing that potential, and then just really kind of assisting students in finding their passion?
Yeah, well, Mallory was academically talented, so that was never something we ever had to have discussions about. Sometimes there's just soul searching.
Yeah.
Lots of soul searching that goes on.
That's like the running joke, isn't it?
Conversations.
It's still the running joke. It's like Mallory doesn't know what she's doing with her life.
But you can do anything, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that you were just talented at research and science. You were also involved in the writing center, right? That was a whole other component of your life where you got, I think you presented research with the elder, right, somewhere. So you weren't just talented in Walker Science Center. You were able to, get out of that comfort zone. And that pays dividends down the road for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because I agree that at Morningside you can be involved in so many different things. I didn't know you were involved in the writing center.
Yeah.
So you're pretty active there. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I started off actually, I think it was the end of my freshman year, or maybe it was the beginning of my sophomore year. But David Elder was just looking for new people to work in the writing center, and I don't think at the time they had anyone in this kind of biology chemistry space. So maybe that was a way for them to diversify a bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He saw what I could write, and I submitted samples.
Sure.
Yeah, and we just got along really well, and so I worked in the center up until the end.
And for those that don't know, the writing center at Morningside, is. I mean, do you want to give a brief
you
synopsis?
go.
Well, I was just going to say, the Writing Center and Academic Support Center is a free service offered at Morningside for students that maybe need assistance with different classes or their writing in particular. I mean, gosh, I wrote a lot of papers studying political science, but it was one of those where, especially early on in a student's career, they can go and they can get that support from their peers or from professors and other individuals to be able to maybe get the help with honing their writing talents, or whether it's tutoring in other areas and things like that as well.
Yeah, and we helped at like all steps of the writing process. So sometimes it's at the end and I'm not going to call it just like proofreading, but you're putting the final touches on. But other times people come with a prompt for an essay and we just brainstorm. You know, and I loved that. I thought that was so much fun. We could just, we could write about this, you could do this, and it was,
take it this area or that angle on it or stuff like that. Yeah, or even sourcing, you know, like how do you cite your sources and do those different things. Wow, so you're playing soccer.
Yeah.
You're doing research with chemistry. You're working in the Writing Center. You know, you're presenting at conferences. You just, were hanging out in your dorm. Just weren't really a busy student, huh?
And I worked at Drilling Pharmacy.
Hey, yes, that's right. Yeah. I recall that as well. Oh my gosh. So when did the evolution happen then from finding your passion for research and some of the things that were happening on campus? When did it transition to marine biology or like going into that area?
It seems like such an odd thing, like landlocked Iowa to marine science.
Yeah. I mean, the Missouri River is beautiful, but I don't know if you're like brainstorming.
We're not diving in there, no.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we're doing that.
Yeah, so I think like going back to that earlier kind of the discussion we had about, I wanted to get out, I wanted to see something new.
Yeah.
I wanted to study abroad. That was always something I wanted to do as well. So wanted to tie all the pieces together, and I knew I loved research, wanted to study abroad. And so this was kind of towards the end of my degree where I really only needed like an ecology course to graduate. And I said, well, I could do it at Morningside, but I have enough time where I could go do an entire ecology program abroad somewhere. So I was kind of looking at the options that Morningside had for studying abroad, and that semester they didn't have any ecology ones. So I actually went and found one online. It's a big accredited ecology program. And I brought that to President Reinders, and he was like, yeah, we'll make this happen. So it's like, that's the power of Morningside. Like, very cool. But anyway, so I went to Panama for a semester. It was the first, so good. I went to Bocas del Toro, Panama, little set of like islands, and it was all tropical coastal ecology. I promise I was working. I wasn't just on the beach the whole time. But part of the reason I chose this as well, it was the research, because part of that semester you got to design and conduct your own experiment. And so for me, I really hadn't done anything in the water before that. It was my first time snorkeling. I was probably, I think, 2021.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, I'd seen, exactly. Yeah. So, and I tell people this too, I didn't see the ocean probably until I was a teenager, but this was my first time like getting in the water, doing research, and my first experience with field work. I could do science in the ocean. I was like, that's it. I love this, and this is me. That was the first click for me.
And what year was that?
That was the first semester of my senior year. Yeah. So maybe I was 21, 22. I'm not sure, but yeah.
But just to be able to have that experience where you can travel abroad or, be able to study abroad and then really get that firsthand experience to test. Like, I always think that there's an internship, there's a study abroad opportunity, there's a research project, there's something that sometimes can be the catalyst or the turning point in a student's career where they say, this is really what I like, or this is really what I don't like, and I need to transition, right?
And that was it for me. Yeah, Panama was it.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And so do you remember either of you working with her at this time or kind of harnessing some of that energy? Talk to me about that.
Oh, yeah. Mallory, you mentioned the running joke is that Mallory doesn't know what to do with her life. This all stems from, I think, from conversations that Aaron and I both had with her during those years, because Mallory has the curse of being ultra talented at lots of things, and so I know one of the fears that you had was that you were going to pick the wrong thing, and kind of be stuck in it. And so, what do we say when you don't know what to do? Identify your interests and learn more about them. So we had a lot of conversations about possible places to go for internships, and a lot of that centered around chemistry, but certainly I think, we put in a lot of time talking about other interests as well and looking to see, okay, we know exactly your passions are science and also learning more about different cultures, traveling. And so why not try to find some outside the box opportunities. And she did that, and I think that's a real credit to Mallory, and also a really good lesson for current and future students is that you're probably not going to know what you want to do right off the bat.
Yeah.
Be proactive and really take the bull by the horns in finding your opportunities to learn more about possible interests. You learn that you did not want to do organic chemistry research in a lab full time after your Japan experience, and that's great. Yeah. So, but then you kept looking and learning more about what you are interested in. So that's a really good lesson.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, talk about embodying the Morningside experience fully to where it's like you come in not knowing exactly what you want to do or where you're going to go, to then doing a little bit of research in a lab, to then finding yourself in Panama doing some research there, presenting at conferences, while being a student athlete all in the same time. Like, that's kind of great. Talk to me about some of the other experiences you had that really shaped your career here at Morningside as you were getting ready to kind of graduate and move on to that next step.
Well, you brought up the experience in Japan.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
I think you were the one telling me about the research experiences for undergraduates, these like REUs, and these are things that are completely off of my radar at the time. Didn't know what that was, but when you have someone come to you and say, oh, this is something you should do or think about, and I was like, oh, I could apply for these. So I applied for these. They're like summer internships at bigger universities, and really, you get like hands-on experience in a lab doing a specific project. And so that was an opportunity for me to try something new in a new place. And most of those are in the U.S., and I applied to some in the U.S., and I actually got a few, I think, in the U.S., but I got this one in Japan as well. I just kind of threw in the application to be like, okay, they do organic chemistry, I've done organic chemistry, let's just see what happens. And I think I was ready to go to Wisconsin.
You were?
Yeah, I was going to go to Wisconsin. And I got this letter saying, oh, you can go to the University of Tokyo. And I was like, oh, I want to try. This is my chance. This is my chance to get out, right? And I say get out in the nicest way. I mean,
I
it's just
understand.
experience something
Explore.
new. Yeah, that's a good way. Because I do love Morningside, right? Yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna go. That was my first experience abroad ever. I'm gonna just go work in a lab in Japan, and it was culture shock to the extreme. You know, it's like really,
Because what year was that, or when was that?
That was my junior year. I think it was between my summer between junior and senior year. So I actually just got back from Japan, and then I turned around and went to Panama. So it was it was like abroad.
The very traditional Morningside experience. There you are. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Working in Japan, that's when I knew like I really wanted to experience new cultures and live abroad longer in new places. That was the travel bug, the wanderlust, that's really where that started for me. And that's just continued on ever since. So that for me was a very big moment. And Brian brought it up. I didn't really enjoy working in the lab, but I loved the people and the experience. And I think you said to me once, like, figuring out what you don't want to do is just as important as figuring out what you do.
Yes.
Maybe you don't remember that, but that's stuck with me forever. I still live by that.
Yeah.
And so, that was the point where I was like, gonna do life abroad, and I still am today.
Wow. Yeah, and that's something we encourage students to think about all the time. I mean, maybe you're taking classes that you do or do not know if you're going to enjoy, and sometimes, just exploring those opportunities or trying those different things can tell you a lot about yourself. I want to go into that. I don't want to go into that. That can be equally important. I think that's a good point. So now we've been in Japan, we've been in Panama, we've been all over, and we're nearing graduation. What are you thinking that next step is going to be, or what are you focused on?
So at that point, I realized, I want research and I love being abroad. And so from there, I was like, Fulbright it is. And I don't know who it was that actually pointed me towards a Fulbright, because again, it wasn't on my radar, really. It's something I'd heard of, but I had never considered myself. And it just took someone saying to me, hey, did you know this is something you could do? You'd be really good for this, you know? And so I started working with Gail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Gail, she had a Fulbright,
Mm-hmm.
and she was kind of the Fulbright advisor for students at Morningside.
Correct.
So I didn't even know her before that, but we just started getting together, working on my application. And again, it kind of looked like a big world map, and it was picking, where are you going to go and what do you want to do? And so it was another one of those, I don't know, exploring, figuring out what I wanted. Ended up applying to do a marine science program in New Zealand. And actually the first time I didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a year off, but I applied with Gail again, and we got it the next year.
Wow.
So yeah, Fulbright, amazing. And the year in between, I had a lot more international experiences too. So it worked out perfectly.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so for someone that doesn't know much about the Fulbright process or that experience, kind of talk to me and talk to maybe prospective viewers about that, and feel free anyone else to jump in as well of what that looks like.
Right. I mean, the Fulbright experience, it's kind of different for everyone. But Fulbright was a senator, and there's a big kind of grant pool for U.S. citizens that want to go abroad, and it's an exchange program. And in a way, we're kind of informal ambassadors to the U.S., but each country that's involved in the program has a different kind of agreement with the United States.
Yeah.
For New Zealand, because I'm pretty familiar with that, it was 7 students from the U.S. were going to New Zealand, and then 7 Kiwis were going to go to the U.S. And so that's the way their program works. But some of the Fulbright programs, it's for teaching English abroad. And so if that's something people are interested in, that kind of experience would be very different. For New Zealand, it was all research-based experiences. And so that's one of the reasons I chose to apply in New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the Fulbright
Wow.
program. You can do a lot of different things, and you put in the application saying, this is what I want to do in this place. And then there's a group of people that decide, yes, this is something we're going to fund, or maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to feel supported at Morningside, you know, and have a staff member or faculty member that was able to be in your corner and encourage you, even after maybe not getting it that first year, but then adding to your life experience, throughout that time, and then maybe applying again and being able to secure that. I think that's impressive.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't you have to submit like an original research proposal as part of that?
I did.
So that's no small task to do. So, but yeah, you wrote a pretty impressive proposal, and it was all based on marine research experience that you had. So.
Wow. Yeah. And then after that type of experience, then catch me up now where you are and what's going on.
So moved to New Zealand with that Fulbright grant, and that was to fund my master's degree in marine science. So it was kind of half coursework in marine science, which I arguably needed because I only had the one semester in Panama. So half of it was coursework, and then the other half was going to be a year of research related to my proposal. And so ahead of time, I had already talked to a professor in New Zealand, and we'd figured out my plan. So I knew coming in what I was going to do. And it's restoration ecology. So
Okay.
I worked with mussels in New Zealand. And I can give the whole backstory, but I guess the short story is that like back in the 1960s, all of the mussels in this area of New Zealand were dredged out. And so people had stopped commercial dredging, but they've never recovered and haven't come back. And so now there's a big movement in New Zealand to bring mussels back for all the good things that they can do for people. And we call those ecosystem services. And so then I would go in after these mussels had been placed in the water, and I would measure some of the different ecosystem services. So actually my chemistry background was super helpful because some of the important services that we're looking at, I mean, there's so many, but the ones that I was looking at was about carbon cycling, nitrogen cycling. And so I was in this biogeochemistry space. And so for me, it's actually been a way to tie everything together. It's biology, it's chemistry, it's field work, and it's living abroad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about full circle and like getting a lot of those different maybe interest areas or things of your past, coming together and being able to really focus and harness that. I think that's really cool.
Right. And so I guess I left it there. This was my master's degree.
Yeah.
And then partway through, I'm not even sure how it happened, but it turned into a PhD.
Yeah.
Someone told me, I got roped in. So here I am. It took me about 4 years, and I defended my dissertation in July of this year. So all done now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr.
To
C.
have that. Yeah, exactly. Dr. C.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
No kidding. That is so impressive and so fun to kind of hear about that journey. And then you've also been doing scuba diving instruction and things like that. We were talking about that earlier. Free diving, diving in a cage. Talk to me about some of that fun.
Yeah, so that year I had off when I was reapplying for the Fulbright. And I was talking to that professor in New Zealand that I was going to work with, something he said was, you could build up your diving experience in the meantime, because some of the diving in New Zealand, it's pretty challenging. It's cold, there's high currents, low visibility. So it's like, we want really good divers in our program, and that's a way, you could build your resume a bit.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm going to dive, and I want to do it abroad somewhere. So I became a scuba diving instructor in Mexico. That was my off time. And then I took that and I moved to Hawaii, and I was an instructor in Hawaii for a while too. I taught myself, how to dive, went through the program, became an instructor, and then now I teach people to dive.
Oh, how cool. So now what's the next step? Now, Dr. C, we're looking at what we would like to go on to do next. What are you thinking? What's the next step?
I'm kind of glad I'm in this room with these guys. I might ask for some life advice. Yeah, I know. Exactly. I still don't know. That's the short answer. But I know I'm going to stick in the marine sciences. I'm kind of into this NGO space right now. So right now, actually, now that I've finished, I do have a job at New Zealand's largest aquarium in Auckland, and I'm their restoration coordinator. And so it's a really cool job. I kind of get to pick and choose projects that I think are going to improve the overall health of the Hauraki Gulf in New Zealand. And so I've worked with lobsters now, big citizen science programs. We are recording underwater sounds with these hydrophones. I've started some building 3D models. We're using artificial intelligence. I'm going in all kinds of different directions at the same time, kind of picking and choosing what I think can be best to help out the Gulf, and I really love that. So my end goal is to kind of take something like that and move it somewhere warmer. That's the plan. But we'll see where that takes me. I'm open to the possibilities.
Most definitely. Well, how inspiring. I really, really want to thank you all for being on this episode of Inside Mside. I think it's indicative of the type of experience that students can have when they lean in to their experience here at Morningside, but also utilize the resources that are available to them. Because I think that sometimes faculty members, staff members alike, all of those individuals are saying, hey, we want to be here to help you. We want to really assist you in just exploring what your passions might be and where it could lead you. And I think you're such a beautiful example of what can be done when you do that. When you lean in and you say, I would like to go in these different areas or maybe explore this. And then the two of you to really be able to encourage that growth and really work with Dr. C on just some of her passions and just be able to do all of that. And the one thing we didn't really get into, but I mean, even your soccer career, right? Like being able to play here, because I think, gosh, now we're over 80% student athletes on this campus. And so I think that it's one of those things where people maybe want to come here to pursue a sport and they end up finding their passion and they're able to do both. And I think that's such a great thing to be able to harness some of that and just really embrace both sides of your personality to say, look, I really wanted to do this, but I also had all these different passions, even if you don't know what that is at the time. Because there are so many students. We have an XPath program specifically for students that don't know what they want to go into, to give that time and space to maybe pursue other things or look into what they might go into. And so I think that you're not alone in that, but it's amazing to kind of see that evolution and see that change in you of where you found some of that through research and through these different opportunities. And to think that you can study abroad in all the different ways here at Morningside, and how many times do we just push students to do that and talk to them about the benefits of that. Sometimes you don't even know it until you're in it, and then it's like, wow, that's that aha moment was on one of those types of things. So I just want to thank you all. Thank you all again for coming and being a part of this and sharing your story, sharing your journey, and also bringing these two along with to kind of talk about how they as mentors shaped that experience. And I think I can say I know that they're proud of you, but we're as a university just incredibly impressed and proud of the work that you're doing and going to continue to do. So.
Thanks.
Well done. And thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Inside Mside. We're excited to have you and excited to look into future episodes. If you have an idea, make sure to reach out to us, or if you know an alum or anyone that's doing something great, please reach out and let us know. We would love to introduce the rest of the Morningside community to them and hear their story, because things like this should be highlighted, and we're just excited to welcome you back to campus.
Thanks.
And to be able to bring the two of you on the pod as well. So thank you so much.